When you think of the moon landings, how do you associate that with sewing? Yeah, I'll be honest, for a long time, I wouldn't have been able to come up with an answer. You may already know about this, but there is actually a connection between sewing and the moon landing, and this really interests me as a sewer. Now, it's one that got absolutely zero press or attention at the time of the moon landings, but it's now actually starting to be told more often. And it's the story of the women who sewed the suits that helped get men to the moon and then brought them back safely as well. And without these meticulously sewn suits, there could have been no space moonwalks or travel at all in space. These women made it possible. Now, in the 1960s, spacesuits didn't exist as we have them now. And it took a company completely unassociated with the entire aerospace industry to come up with the concepts that we now associate with modern spacesuits. This company actually made Playtex bras and girdles, and the people sewing them were expert seamstresses, and they were able to create complex body-conforming suits just like they were needed for NASA and their spacesuits. So I'm trying to imagine the look on the faces of these ladies when they found out what their new job was going to be, from making girdles to sewing spacesuits for NASA. Each Apollo spacesuit had over 21 layers of special materials. They were designed to withstand extreme temperatures, radiation, and the vacuum of space. But obviously, none of these things would have been possible with any contemporary garment that was in existence. Not only that, these layers had to be stitched perfectly to withstand the conditions. There was no room for error. Talk about the pressure to be perfect. This really gives a perfectionist like me pause and makes me wonder what kind of personality would work best under these conditions. It seems like the stress of this perfection would have been overwhelming. When cutting the various fabrics, they used a pattern similar to what we use in garment making today. However, the allowable variation between the paper pattern size and the cut fabric could be no more than 1/64 of an inch. It couldn't be 1/64 of an inch bigger or smaller than the original pattern they were coming from. This is an actual 0.015 inches or 0.4 millimeters. I can tell you with considerable assuredness that nothing I have ever cut has been even close to this tolerance, even close to 1/64 of an inch when compared to the original pattern. As far as tools, no pins were allowed because pins could puncture the airtight layers. And obviously in space, that's a really big deal. There can't be any holes, not even microscopic, in the suits. The goal was to keep space out of the suits, and just one mistake could mean an astronaut wouldn't survive. Now, the women weren't just following a pattern. They were problem solving in real time. These suits had to flex with the body, seal perfectly, and survive total exposure to space. Remember, they were walking on the moon. So every stitch had to be checked and rechecked. They were literally doing something that had considered life and death. Now, also, this was top secret. They couldn't tell anyone what they were doing. It was all classified. And yet they came in every day without ever getting the credit they deserved or even the ability to share this really fascinating work with their friends and family. Every woman on that team knew the weight of what they were doing. One was even quoted to say, "We were stitching for life or death." Neil Armstrong took those suits to the moon. Buzz Aldrin wore their work while he stood on the moon. And every breath those astronauts took in space was thanks in part to these accomplished, dedicated women who began by sewing underwire bras. Did you already know this story? What fascinates you about it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.